Man, we've been rocking out to that intro. I don't know if that's the same intro we always have. I think it might be, but I like the rock out intro.
It
How about
works.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It works.
Well, welcome one and all to the latest episode of the Wise Agent Society Sharpen the Saw. This is actually episode 18, which is cool. I don't have to ask anymore because it says right at the top of my thing there. We have the pleasure of having Mr. Michael Vestuto, real estate agent extraordinaire in Las Vegas, once again on the show. Long time no see, buddy. Love the beard. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure always speaking with you and catching up.
Yes, sir. So tell us about the beard. It's the No Shave November, right?
Yeah, it's No Shave November. Someone asked me today why, it's No Shave November. I don't know where that derived from.
I don't know, but I want to say, is it a cancer thing? Like a cancer awareness?
Well, that's what I thought. I know October is breast cancer month, and I thought maybe November was testicular cancer month, but you don't really see it like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either, but for some reason, I don't know for sure either. That's what I'm saying, but I think it derived from that. We should look it up. Maybe Tara will look it up and put it in the chat comments or something and tell us. That would be cool.
Sure.
But it looks good, buddy. I like the bearded
look.
It's,
as you said, it's the wisdom look.
It's the wisdom. I can see your wisdom colors shining through.
Yeah.
Mine gets more wise every year. So it used to be all kinds of weird colors. Now it's getting to be mostly a gray. I actually want it to be all white. I want all my hair white and my beard white.
There you go.
Straight Santa, bro.
That seems to be like the trend.
I think it looks sharp,
Yeah.
I actually get my haircut and all my stuff done tomorrow, so I should look a little more GQ, a little less Santa,
Good.
after tomorrow. So check me out on Thursday's show. We'll see if there's a difference.
See you all cleaned up?
Yeah, I got cool barbers and stuff here, so I try to hit them I'm going to get on a proper schedule and do it every 2 weeks. So looking forward to that. So last time we talked Las Vegas market data, and today we are going to talk about, we're going to go into discussion about the NAR lawsuits, what that is, what that means, what it could mean, all of those things. And if we have some time, we can also talk about interest rates. They're high. What's that mean? Did you hear or see about the Fed's announcement on raising rates there? Did you see that? Was that yesterday?
Yeah, I saw that they weren't going to raise any the rates for the rest of the year.
Yep. Maybe no more.
Yeah.
We can finish that. Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Okay.
Because I saw, Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
A good homie, and I'm not sure how well you know him, but he's.
Oh, I know him really well.
I figured he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just got so much great information. But I saw him post. That's why I knew about it. And he was saying something that they probably won't raise it anymore, or maybe that's what they indicated. Like we're maybe done raising rates. I'm not sure, but it could be. And that, then the question is, when will they start going the other way? And he said that typically it's 8 months, 6 to 8 months after they stop raising the rates. So he was saying, what did he say? Late spring, early summer type thing. We might see stuff starting to tick down. So what do you think about that? And what did you hear or read about it?
I've heard the same thing, but I've also heard that nobody knows, not even the major economists. I mean, usually, whatever the 10-year bond is, the yield spread is usually 1 to 1.5 points above that. But this year, it's been hanging about 3 points above the 10-year bond, and nobody knows why the spread is so far apart for mortgages. And so I think there's a lot of, maybe it's for risk analysis. I've heard that the U.S. government has had difficulties with, getting money and selling off our debt and selling off the even the 10-year bond. So, it's like with the whole thing with the wars and et cetera, you have all these countries. I mean, it's unfortunate because, our 10-year bond relies on a lot of governments buying those bonds, and even our own government buying those 10-year bonds, and we're not even infusing that much money into it. So it's kind of like we've closed our eyes to the housing sector. Like we're not even paying attention to it.
We touched on that a little bit last time, and I think you're right. It's a weird thing. Like it's in a weird blind spot where it shouldn't be, because it's major. It's a major factor in our overall economy, and it does seem like they are not considering it now. Real quick, I did. I posted this today. So, do you know who Chris Heller is?
Name sounds familiar.
Used to be the CEO or the president of Keller Williams International, right? So he was huge in growing Keller Williams internationally. But aside from that, now he's like Ojo and whatever else he's in, or Movoto, or however, I don't know. But he's involved in some other cool stuff along with Jeremiah Taylor. But anyway, they have this show similar to this, and they were posting. This guy was talking about basically, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, last time too, that there's a ton of equity stuck in houses, right?
Yeah.
You got to watch this thing I posted today. I just reshared what they put.
Okay.
But it's talking about debt consolidation, I think is what he said, but maybe it's debt restructuring, whatever. So put it this way. Okay. If people are worried about or reluctant to take on a 7% or 7.25% interest rate on their house, right? They're like, whoa, I can't afford that. Like, I can't sell my house and get that money out of there. And, I want to, but I can't because the interest rate's too high on the next place, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he starts off his conversation showing the overall credit card debt load, and also the overall maybe money going into the economy. I can't remember. There's a couple different charts he shows. And in there, he talks about the credit card debt is through the roof right now, and it's not 14% like it was pre-pandemic or whatever that number was. It's now 24% or whatever, right? And anyway, so he was showing that your overall combined or debt average, I forget the words he used right now, is probably 7% or higher total anyway. True. So, and then they're carrying all this car debt, whatever, at these high rates, right? Credit card debts, these other different debts. And what you can do then is sell your house, take that, and then it talks about the average equity in a home is around 200,000. It's maybe a little less, around there. So you could sell your house, pull that money out. You have plenty of money to put into a down payment on the next house. Pay off don't put all that money, but take some of that money, pay off your debts. And then you have a 7% interest rate. Basically, you're in the same spot payment-wise and everything else, but with zero debt.
Sure.
So I think that was a cool way to talk about that, because people sometimes we get tunnel vision, right? Like, interest rates are high on the houses. We can't do this, and really you could be saving money, or at least be neutral, or maybe even just a little bit higher on payment, but no debt.
Yeah.
Or very little debt. Have you heard anybody talk about that or thought about that?
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard about that. I've even heard about people doing a HELOC. And even though a HELOC may run you 9 or 10%, you paying off a 20%, credit card, or paying off a house, or paying off a car. I think that's good for people that are good with their money. But I think with a lot of people, we pay off that credit card debt and then we just reaccumulate new credit card debt. And my real concern is, right now they just said that we are in the largest amount of defaults we've ever had in history for auto loans. In that the average auto loan is like, I think it was like $900 or maybe even $1,000 for the average car payment right now.
$1,000.
And yeah, and we know that a lot of people are living off of credit cards. You know, we're over $1 trillion in credit card debt.
They also said it's like 40% of them are late or something like that. I don't know which age categories, but watch the thing and you'll see they're late on their credit card payments.
So my concern is, and I'm starting to see it now with my own clients, is even if interest rates were to go down, like we're talking, if interest rates go down to 5%, we're going to have a flood in the market, houses are going to skyrocket. What I'm finding is that people's debt to income ratios are so high right now that even with interest rates coming down, they still are barely qualifying because of their car payments, their credit card debts that they're accumulating. They're basically putting their surplus of what they can't afford on their credit card month after month. That's adding up. So let's say a year, 18 months from now, when people go to buy, if interest rates go down to, let's say even 6%, you know, to getting someone to qualify based on their debt to income ratio is going to be very difficult. So the unfortunate part, like we talked about last time, is that we really need people to tap into that equity of their homes today. And that needs to like circulate into the economy. And everyone's totally forgotten about the housing sector. And how integral that is in every facet, whether it be residential or commercial.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. But I think this is a viable way then for them to free up that money and get rid of these defaults, because it seems like people are starting to get in trouble. They're getting defaults on their cars and on their credit cards. whether it's good or bad, or they're good with their money or not, or any of the things, the problem is there are problems. And so I think that if they were to, this is an out in a way, so they can sell their house, tap into the equity, get into a different house. Maybe they need to downsize. Maybe they need to get their payment down. That would be smart too. Some people, of course, need to upsize. Some people have another kid and they need another bedroom. They need another thing. So they need to expand. So there's that too. So I think it's just an interesting way to be able to move forward with that and to unlock some of that. Now, I also agree that I wish that there were people smarter, at least than me. I don't know about you, but I was going to say us, but I don't want to speak for you. But people that are smarter than me in the government sector that would be focusing on incentivizing people to be able to unlock this equity and do something one way or another. So I don't know the answer to why or how that could be, but I do believe it should be a focus, like you were saying.
Yeah, right now, unfortunately, we have the perfect storm of everything that's kind of hurting. You know, you have prices going up, interest rates going up, and the lack of availability for homes. That it's like the perfect storm of negativity, and something's got to give. Either interest rates have to drop significantly, incomes either have to rise significantly, or prices have to go down, and none of that is occurring right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because like you said, we don't know really how it's going to shake out. Nobody does, because it's such a weird time, and the events that are happening haven't happened before in the way that, you know, coming together this way. So we're just going to have to kind of see how it goes. But I think unlocking that equity is a good way to go, and
absolutely
get started there. Oh, check this out. So I'm going to read some. I always forget we have comments going here. So I'm going to read some. So Tara told us that the No Shave November is to bring awareness to cancer. Yeah, the official No Shave November organization was launched in 2009 in Chicago. The Hill family started it to honor their father, whom passed away from colon cancer. I think I said prostate, you said testicular, and it was colon. Okay, somebody said hi on Facebook. I don't know who it is, but hi. It just says Facebook user. And Jason Hayes, dude from Marshalltown,
All right.
originally, and is now in Iowa City. Him and his wife work in real estate there. His wife has a real estate company there. He says, have a good credit recovery company in your SOI. Totally. People can recover with help and be a stronger buyer in months most times.
Okay.
Super true. He's also saying adds value to clients feeling they can't get in a house. Maybe they just can't today. Super true. That's why it's important to talk to your real estate professionals like you or I and come up with a plan that makes sense, for you. So we have to look at a lot of different factors: your income,
Absolutely,
your debt, your payment load that you can handle, or whatever your risk tolerance is, the client's risk tolerance. We need to go through all of that and explain the options, so that, like I always say, is like, we're never going to pressure you to buy or sell or do anything real estate wise. I'm going to go over and consult with you and show you all the options, and I'm going to help you make the best decision for yourself and or your family. That's what I do. So
we need to ask a lot more questions, more personal probing questions. We need to find out, like, what's the reason for your move? What's the reason for this? Like, I'm not trying to pry. I just want to put you in the best position possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to give them all the information on the facts of what's going on. I've been doing that with my buyers lately when I do a buyer consultation, because, we talk about the inventory levels here in Las Vegas, but I break it down. Like right now, there's about 5,400 properties on the market, but I break it down for people to really show them, because you want to take out the luxury homes. You want to take out the new homes, and anything that's been on the market for longer than 60 days really is a useless property. It's not selling for a reason. And so, like in our market, that only leaves 2,800 properties.
Wow.
That are actual sellable, usable properties. That includes single family homes and condos. And that's all properties under $1 million.
Wow. That's like half of them, right? Gone.
Yeah. And you really so you want to break it down to people like, look, I know what you want, but you want to break it down and say, this is really what we're going to be working with for inventory for you to choose from. So there's going to be a give and take. Remember, this is your starter home, or this is this and that. There's going to be, some give and take in your decision process. You're not going to get that home with a pool that you want. Maybe you get a home without a pool, and when you become financially able, you put a pool in down the road.
Yeah. Was it you and I that were talking about the pig farm and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that was me, right? My first house was by the pig farm. Did we want to live by the pig farm? Not really. My wife, definitely not. But that was a house that we could afford. It was a smoking deal. Everything was, I think I look at things a little differently, because I like opportunity. So when I see an opportunity anywhere, like, that's what gets me excited. Like, wow, this is going to be, we'll do this, and then it'll be worth this, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, but we didn't, of course, we wanted to live in Summerlin. We wanted to live in Red Rock Country Club or the Ridges or wherever, or we lived in Queens Ridge eventually, but, we didn't start there.
Yeah.
And we started where we could. And like I said, if I wouldn't have sold that dang house, so we bought that house for $135,000. I forget what year, maybe 2010, maybe. And then $135,000. It was $50 a square foot. So whatever that equals. So like, what's that? 20.
Can't even build a house for that.
25. No, they couldn't then either, really. I think it was $100 a square foot for bare bones. And so it was like a 2,500 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot, maybe. It was a weird corner lot. If I would have kept that house still today, it's worth $400 or $450, and there's no pig farm there. So just shows, when we're talking to our clients, like, hey, and if I would quit selling the houses I buy, which you shouldn't, you should just keep them if you can, but we keep selling them and moving to different opportunities. Sometimes we have 2 houses at a time or so. But it's more of having that long-term strategy, right? And looking at what you can do down the road, not just right now, the perfect thing you're ever going to have forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about just getting started, right?
True. We also had our land auction last week.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned that before.
And yeah, so the average price per acre was around 439,000. That ended up, they sold 17 parcels, and when you figure it out, it averaged to like 439,000 per acre.
Is that insane, or that's insane to me? I
It is.
remember
I don't
when it
know.
was 100,000 an acre in Vegas, in like the Northwest, and I felt like that was high.
Yeah, and I mean, how many houses do you have to put on an acre to make it profitable?
That's why
Because
they're
that's without
squeezing
the
them.
construction.
Yeah, they're squeezing them in with no yards and zero lot lines and stuff.
Yeah, they have a whole subdivision in Summerlin now, a master plan, that Kestrel Commons, or Kestrel Village, and almost all the communities are 3-story homes. You have
Wow.
KB, Woodside, Pulte. They're all building 3 stories, and that it's right on the south side of Reverence.
Okay. Yeah. Do you remember those other ones that are over there on the west side off the 215 somewhere that were, I mean, they probably were built, I want to say 15, 20 years ago. 3-story ones with the rooftop decks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those are nice. And that's really honestly what brought me to move to Las Vegas in the beginning. Jen and I came from San Diego to do something. We looked at houses just for the fun of it. And we were like, these are amazing. And it's so cheap compared to San Diego and blah, 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 blah. So we moved there. We didn't end up buying a 3-story one, but I mean, they were pretty cool. But I mean, some of those floor plans, the kitchen's in the middle, so you drive in the basement and you got to go up a flight or 2 of stairs to get to the fridge. So we were thinking about that, and we didn't. She was pregnant. I don't think we had babies yet. We were just having babies. So we were thinking about all of that. And we're like, man, I don't know about all those stairs. But I do know, and I have sold, and I have friends and clients that own those still today. That, I mean, they're still cool, and they look cool, and those rooftop decks are dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're saying, I mean, there's not a lot of other options to put in.
They're not. They're building some of those 3 stories now, so it's almost like a multi-generational property, or if you wanted to have roommates or whatever, because almost every floor will have like a living room area and then a bedroom and a bathroom.
Okay.
So you could almost rent out 2 of the floors, and you can live on the main, which would be the 2nd floor, where the kitchen and, your living room and bedroom are. But every floor is kind of set up that way. So it's kind of unique how they're making them now.
That's kind of cool. And do they still have rooftop decks?
Some of them do. I think I don't know if it's hard for like the zoning for them to get the rooftop decks, but I'm not seeing as many rooftop decks as we did, back in early 2000s.
Yeah, and they had a bunch of those too, a cluster of them down near Blue Diamond. Where those were at, but I sold some of those too. Kevin Wool, what's up, fella? He's saying, "What's up, fellas?" To us.
I can see that. What's up, Kevin?
Kev Dog. If I was there, we could go install some ceiling fans or something. Kevin one time came over to my house. I think I grilled steaks and stuff for a bunch of people, and he helped. Or I more like helped him install a ceiling fan. I don't even know if he used a ladder. He's so tall.
Is that part of the warranty work that he does now?
Yeah, man. You get a warranty with Kevin Wool, and he installs ceiling fans for you.
Perfect. I'm going to start using that for my marketing.
Yep. What do you need? Odds and ends. He's got you.
Yep.
He's a good dude. Miss you, Kevin. Yeah. So we've been talking about interest rates this whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe we should switch gears here to the NAR lawsuits. And why don't you just kind of tell everybody what it is, what happened, when it happened, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I don't know exactly when it happened. There's multitude of lawsuits that were filed all kind of at once, but we just had the first one that included like Remax Anywhere, which is I think that's Coldwell Banker, Century 21. I don't know who else.
Yeah.
Then, Keller Williams, and then NAR obviously was mentioned in that. And it was basically, I think there were 3 homeowners that basically stated that, realtors were fixing the system as far as keeping commissions high.
Like price fixing or whatever.
Price fixing, yeah. So I really feel that they buried their heads in the sand for the longest time on this, thinking this wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Even the attorneys they hired, I kind of followed what they were talking about. And, I've got all the respect for like Gary Keller. I mean, obviously he built a freaking great company. The CEO of NAR, Bob Goldberg, he's been there for 30 some years, I think. But I feel like they brought out too many suits and not enough like people that are working in the business. They didn't call any of the people the realtors that were representing these clients. They kind of left it up to, the suits, which, your jury kind of looks at these people as, rich, wealthy.
Yeah. Unrelatable.
Kind of out of touch. And even the attorney in his closing argument said that this is a common sense case. They didn't really explain it well. And, they lost. And there was some pretty damning stuff that came out. There was a video that came out from a Berkshire Hathaway executive. They tried to get a mistrial because they didn't present this ahead of time, but they, had this podcast that they released with him and Tom Ferry. And in the video, the guy basically told people whenever they asked him to cut his commission that he was given an example of what he tells people. And it was a whole explicit, foul mouth. I'm not a whore, a $2 whore on the street. I'm not going to cut my costs and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was just it just made us look bad as an industry.
Yeah. Super unprofessional. Sounds like. Who did that?
An executive with Berkshire Hathaway. I don't know exactly his name, but he's been there a long time. And it was on a podcast with Tom Ferry.
Wow.
So when they showed that in the courtroom, it just made us look bad.
Yeah.
And then they really got under Gary Keller's. They got him to get pretty heated during the questioning. And then they obviously showed, a lot of training material that talked about commissions, and then talked about how they teach people on listing agreements to go to your listing presentation with the amount already pre-filled in on the agreement, which made it look like that's standard practice.
Which is a huge no-no. You're trained from the beginning that commissions are negotiable, and that this is super risk, like litigious language, that we don't say a certain percent. I mean, that's been hammered into every real estate agent from the beginning. There's nowhere in there that it says to do this stuff, which is the funniest thing. I don't know how we lost that when that's all we talk about is not doing that.
I really think it was the demise of all this stemmed from NAR funding and distributing that danger report that they did about 10 years ago.
Okay, and what was that?
They paid for this study. I forget who did it, but it was a danger report on real estate and the market. And it talked about what the industry as a whole was going to face for challenges and obstacles. And one of the things they talked about was commission compression, and how, incomes were going to be compressed, and how it was going to, they even talked about Zillow and how eventually they're going to align with a large franchise, just this whole study. And they paid to have their report done, and then they distributed it. So that's when it caught the eyes of the DOJ. And the DOJ came down on us. Now the DOJ, since we lost this lawsuit, they met with that attorney that won the lawsuit. And now the DOJ is looking to come after NAR. And, they've sent us a couple videos out talking about we're going to appeal this and et cetera. But I don't know of any class action lawsuit that's been appealed and successfully won.
Yeah. I don't really know anything about it, so couldn't tell you, but.
Yeah. And since this, like within an hour after they won that lawsuit, they went and filed another lawsuit against EXP,
the rest of the big ones.
Redfin, all the Douglas Elliman, all these other brokerages. And now there's
precedent, so why not?
Yeah, and now there was 2 lawsuits filed last week, one in New York and one South Carolina for the same thing. I have a feeling that every state is going to have their own version of this lawsuit. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I'm surprised in Vegas. I'm surprised Richard Harris or somebody hasn't jumped on it already, thinking, okay, I can get $1 billion settlement here, and I'll make X amount of dollars.
Yeah, one thing about that, I think that now that you mentioned $1 billion, and which was the other one was 1-point-something billion, right? The first one with
1.8, but it's $5 billion with treble damages.
Right. So my point is, there's not even enough of that money to pay everybody out. So with all the lawsuits, really what it'll do is crumble what's already there, and it'll have to restructure in a different way. Don't you think? I mean, there's not enough money to pay for all.
Yeah.
That. Especially with the more and more lawsuits coming. I mean, it's not feasible. So it'll just be a restructuring situation.
Yeah, and I'm really disappointed with NAR. I would have figured that right away, NAR would have came out with a disclosure of some sort and they required every realtor to have it signed and explain to their clients to discuss compensation that you have to have in your file that covers your butt and covers NAR.
Yeah, the client has to sign it. Like, hey, commissions are negotiable, which, again, in all of my trainings, that's all we ever talked about, was that it is, and that you don't come out, and you can still pick what you want as a realtor at your own business. You can pick but it's negotiable. Like, not everybody does it. And if you don't want to work with me and this is what I charge, that's fine. Or even better, have a tiered structure. So, here's what I offer for 5%. Here's what I offer for 6%. Here's what I offer for 7%. Whatever it is, all that makes a lot more sense than, like you said, kind of burying your head in the sand or not getting in front of it, which I feel like, since I've been involved in the real estate community for whatever it is now, 10, 12 years, that they've done a poor job of getting in front of all this stuff. And starting with Zillow, way back when I first got started, my mind was blown, and I kept trying to ask people at the Association of Realtors and stuff, why are we opting? Why do you have to opt out of Zillow rather than opt in? Why are all the brokerages automatically opted into Zillow and they have to opt out? And nobody could tell me. They were just like, I'm like, tell me who voted. Tell me when the vote was that the association, our local Las Vegas Association of Realtors, when was the vote to opt everybody in? And then if they wanted to, in a hard way, opt out, when did that happen? Nobody could ever tell me. They would walk around it, sidestep, and I'm just like, do you understand how crazy this is? I'm like, we are killing our industry. I'm brand new. I don't know anything about anything, but I know this is silly. This is silly, and we should stop and get in front of it. And I think, go ahead.
Years ago, I think it was when Dave Tina Jr. was LVR president, they did cut the feed to Zillow.
I remember.
I think they cut the feed to everyone. I think they even cut it to Realtor.com. If I'm not mistaken. And they cut the feed. They said, we're not giving out the data to anyone. Yeah. And then they had to reinstate it like a couple weeks later, because all the big franchises had their own agreement. Like Remax, I was at Remax at that time. They had an agreement with, I forget who, List Hub, I think. So List Hub was automatically putting Remax listings onto Zillow. So then it made all these smaller brokerages that didn't have agreements all their listings basically weren't showing, and they were complaining like, hey, like you cut the feed, but all these other big franchises have their listings up there, but now we don't. So they had to like make it fair, and they had to like reinstate it for everybody, to my understanding.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. And I liked the idea, and I liked that he had the gusto, the cojones to do it. I just think that, you know, there were some things that maybe weren't thought about that you know, were missed there, and maybe you just wouldn't know until you did it. But then also with that, where all these small mom and pop brokerages were reliant upon Zillow for their businesses already.
Yeah.
And so if you cut that, which is insane because I'm not saying that Zillow is a useful tool. So the people that are using it at a high level, fine. It's still the devil, in my opinion, meaning that it's counterproductive as to our industry as a whole. It is effective and it's a good product. I'm not saying that, but I guess what I'm saying is we should have had our own, which we already talked about that with the realtor.com and them selling the realtor.com platform to which company was it?
It's News Corp.
News Corp. We kept the URL. We still own the URL. We meaning National Association of Realtors, but we rent it out. And now, at the same time, it was probably garbage at the time, and so this News Corp made it into something viable. But why didn't we make it into something viable, right? Like, so back to why aren't we as an organization being more proactive in, you know, technology, you know, the best interests of ourselves and also the clients, and also transparency to the clients and all of this? Then, I mean, those are our main issues, and they're all solvable, you know?
I've had frustration with this for the longest time, and I've spoken up about this because we have a disclosure for everything after there's a lawsuit. We had the Kitech plumbing disclosure that we had to do. Remember the Chinese drywall?
Yep.
That we had to disclose. We had to disclose that there was a 215 Beltway. We had to disclose that we had casino and gaming. We had that form for gaming that we had to have signed. Yet you have something major like compensation, and how our fiduciary responsibility is to always disclose, and cover your ass. But when it comes to commission, it is like 3 lines, and it explains nothing to the client. It basically tells you you're paying this. It doesn't tell you where it's going. It doesn't tell you how the money's being used.
And how co-op work. It does, but it's not very in detail.
And there should be a separate disclosure for that right away. Like whenever we close on a transaction, we have to supply that commission agreement to the title company that discloses how it's paid. And then at the closing, that's where the seller executes, oh yeah, I agree to this. Yeah. Why isn't that form done ahead of time? Because come on, we both know that a lot of agents tell people, I charge 6%, 3 is going to go to the other agent. I'm working with 3 to do all the things I promised you that I'm going to do. But then they end up putting it in the MLS for 4% to them and 2% to the other agent.
Yep.
So,
or even worse, there are people out there, some well-known for doing it and everything, folks from, I'm talking before, not even now. Now, who knows? Like it could be even worse, but there's some pretty prominent people out there, or at least one that I can think of that, you know, was charging 7%, keeping 5%, co-oping 2%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the clients didn't know that. They didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I know that because I've talked to some after the fact in the luxury market that were like, you know, no, that I didn't know that was happening. I'm like, well, that's why your house sold for $100,000 less than it should have in Queensridge or whatever, you know? So,
or why it took longer, or why that agent double-ended it, because they went directly to that agent.
Yep.
You know, and that's the fact that NAR has not come up with a disclosure and a form that explicitly lays out exactly how compensation is and goes over the statute on why it's negotiable, etc. That it just seems like they are so far behind.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it. That's an excellent solution. They should have done that 10 years ago.
Yeah, and they really made themselves look guilty because it used to be where you couldn't list any property in the MLS without, I think it was $1 compensation. You couldn't put it in there at 0 to the other agent. Well, 2 weeks before they were supposed to show up to court for this trial, that's when NAR came out and said, you can now list properties offering 0 compensation. Well, that kind of gave the admission of guilt to before the trial started.
Because why? Explain that to me.
Because you used to not be able to put a listing in the MLS at 0%. You had to put at least $1.
Why? Was the dollar to say that so that at least you are paying some commission? I don't get why. Why did they pick $1?
I think the way they did it before is you had to offer some form of compensation in order for it to go into the MLS.
So they were forcing compensation on the other side, is basically
correct.
I see.
And you couldn't, it wouldn't let you enter a listing into the MLS unless it said something of value in there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't know why, for the client's sake, you wouldn't put something in there for the opposite side, because, you know, you're not incentivizing people to come and show your home, and you know what I mean? And then you're cutting out basically buyer's representation that way, right?
But the way, you know, it's supposed to be, and the way negotiation is that if your client, you know, chooses that they don't want to offer compensation and they feel that the buyer should be represented by their own broker and they should compensate their own broker,
I see.
Then, you know, it's okay. I'll list your property. I'll represent you, and this is what you're looking at by not offering compensation. We can have the other side to try to get it from themselves. And
I see.
I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how. I have a few ideas where this is going to go.
Let's hear it.
Well, one thing I really think is going to happen is now that the DOJ is going to get involved, I think everybody wants their money. And unfortunately, realtors a lot of them have portrayed themselves as millionaires in this business, and that it's big money, easy money, blah, 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 blah. You know, you have all these reality TV shows that don't really show the reality of real estate, but it looks like they're making all this money.
Which, by the way, a lot of those folks, just so y'all out there know, weren't selling any real estate before the show hit. And then all of a sudden now they sell real estate. But before that, many of them had 0 production.
Yeah. And how many times does it show they sold this house for this and this is their compensation? Yeah. Like, this is what such and such earned.
Yeah.
It just made us look bad. What I think is going to happen, one of the first things that's going to happen is I think that the government is going to come down on NAR and want to convert us to W-2 rather than 1099. They did it to the mortgage industry back when the mortgage crisis happened. And the government's going to want their money one way or another. And the biggest way to get it is through taxation. And I feel that NAR has lost their lobbying control. I mean, we're the largest lobbyist of all of them. But I think we've upset somebody in the political arena somewhere, because they are coming after us fierce.
Hammering down, yeah.
So I have a feeling they're going to change the compensation, and we're going to end up being W-2 somehow.
Yeah. So like the mortgage industry, I think they're forced to take I'm going to say $2,500 a month salary, which goes against their commission. So you have to sell so many loans in order to make up for your $2,500 a month salary.
Okay.
And then anything above and beyond that, but it's capped. I think it's capped at, I want to say $7,000 for commission as a mortgage lender. And this is nationwide. Like, that's not a per state thing. It's the way it goes. So that's kind of how that looks, and I agree. That's definitely a theory that I've heard that is super probable, plausible that it could happen.
Yeah. I also think that NAR needs to right away get with every state, and they need to get rid of dual agency. The problem is if you don't get rid of dual agency, what you're going to have is you're going to have the consumer go directly to that listing broker.
Right.
Buyers are not going to pay for their own broker. We can tell them how much they need representation until we're blue in the face. Yep. When they can barely scrape by to afford a down payment or their closing costs, they're not going to come out with however many thousands more for representation. They're going to go directly to that listing broker, try to negotiate the best deal they can on their own. They already have a lot of the information at their fingertips.
Right. But they don't have fiduciary protection at that point. So the fiduciary duty, actually, if they're going to dual represent, well, depends. If they're going to dual represent, then nobody has fiduciary duty. He's not the agent can't have fiduciary duty to both, because you can't. That's the opposite of fiduciary, right? Like to have one's best interest above all else. So then you're talking if they come in as an unrepresented buyer, well, then they have no protection. So then the listing agent is just working for the seller and trying to get the best deal for them, and the buyer is secondary and is not getting that representation. So all the good deals, all the good stuff is going to go to the seller and not the buyer, which kind of reverts us back to, what was it, 20 years ago when buyers representation started in the first place? Probably longer than that, maybe 30 years ago. I don't know when it happened, but it used to be only sellers representation, and then eventually we got buyers representation so that buyers were getting hosed the whole time, right?
But this is also correlates with what you're talking about, how this lawsuit came about, because the consumer is thinking, so I'm paying another broker to compete against me to get their client the best deal, and I'm also paying for my own representation to get me the best deal. Why am I paying an outside broker to basically come beat up me for the best deal and negotiate? And it doesn't make sense to them when you think about, I mean, we're the only industry that I really know of that has that type of where the compensation comes from the other party.
Yeah, that is weird, right? Like if you're going to court, you hire your attorney, you pay for your attorney, the other guy pays for their attorney.
Yeah. And sometimes the court will award attorney fees to one party over another, but up front, that's not how it's done.
Right. Exactly. I was just thinking that unless you win or you lose, then somebody else is picking up the tab probably.
Yeah, and you can't typically use the same attorney unless you mutually agree to something in writing. And attorneys have all types of disclosures, if you use them for both. I know, like when I went through my divorce, we had a mutual agreement, so the attorney just drew it up, but there was this whole bunch of legality and forms that we had to sign that says, hey, you guys both understand that this is why we came to this agreement.
Mm-hmm. And everybody signed off on it to agree, right?
Yeah.
I've been watching Suits a lot, so I feel like I could handle quite a bit of this court stuff. I'm just kidding, but I do love the show. It was hard for me to get into at first, but now I love it.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say too is, when you're take it back to when you're just getting into real estate, you just got licensed, you go to what is it called? The realtor. When you start you got to go take this class.
Code of ethics training.
Yeah, that's it. And they talk about the preamble or whatever.
Yeah.
And they talk about why realtors came about and how that all happened. And the reason for that is because people are, naturally not good. They will take advantage of and crush people that are weaker. And so that's what was happening in real estate constantly before. And, I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe this was a story they fabricated, but I believe it's probably true because I see it. We see it. People get pretty nasty in this business. They care 0% about the other party and only about how they can get more. And in some cases, get one over on the other guy. They don't just because they don't feel like they're getting a good deal unless they're really hurting somebody else, which is psychotic to me. Thankfully, not most of my clients aren't like that, but there are people out there. My point is that's what realtors were brought about why they were brought about and why we have the code of ethics and why we do all this stuff is to protect the consumers from hurting each other, because they were like nonstop maliciously hurting each other, and they still try to. And that's what we're here to do, is to make it so people aren't taking advantage of each other, but that people are getting a fair shake and getting represented. Everybody's getting represented and having a fair shake at the end of the day.
You know what? In my opinion, which this is going to ruffle a bunch of feathers, in my opinion, what NAR should have focused on, and even these attorneys should have focused on, which I think is more of a crime, is all of these realtors that were also flippers that bought these properties from consumers, and then 3 months down the road, you're flipping that property for major profit. Like, you can't tell me that you weren't advising that client, that you weren't shortchanging the value on that home, and you weren't telling them, hey, this is what that home is potentially worth, and how many tens of thousands of those transactions have been done. We focus on the hedge funds buying these properties and et cetera, but why aren't we focusing on that realtor flipper? You basically, I'm just going to say it, you ripped off that consumer. I know a client that I went on a listing appointment. Her house was $500,000. And I told her, like, if you do the carpet, if you do this, we can get you some more money. And she ended up selling it to We Buy Ugly Houses for lower. And they turned around and all they did was paint and carpet. And they sold that house for $700,000. She lost on $200,000 on that house. And there's no way that they told her what that potential value was at.
Well, that's the point. Is so back to people, some agents maybe being malicious or whatever. And I think some people maybe don't understand what the code of ethics are and how that works. And some of them maybe aren't realtors. Maybe they're just real estate agents. But I mean, I've bought some properties like that, not really with the intention to flip, to live in, but we buy them, fix them up, live in them, and then sell them. We've done that a lot. But we also tell people like what the potential is. Like, we go over that. Like, and then the right way to do those scenarios is to disclose, well, hey, and like, so there's training at my brokerage I'm at now at EXP, where they have iBuyer programs and stuff where, so we have an option to take to the consumer saying, hey, we have a pool of buyers that'll buy your house for 30% less, 20 to 30% less than what its actual market value will be, or maybe after repair value or whatever. And so, but it's super clear, and we explain all of the parts. And so, like, you're selling this for less because they're going to come in and inject money, right? So I think if you're doing it that way, then sure, right? They can make a decision to sell it for whatever reason, because they're like, I don't want people in my house. I don't want to deal with the fixes. I don't want to whatever. It doesn't make sense to me, because that's like I told you, I like opportunity. So I'm looking for problems. But some people don't want that stuff. So, but I do believe that you're right, that a lot of these people are not talking about it that way and not explaining it.
I would have separated my business. If I was going to buy houses and flip them, I would have not had my real estate license in order to buy those houses, and then had it listed with a realtor to totally like clear yourself of any legalities down the road. I mean, because even when they do the SRPD, they're not disclosing all
What's the SRPD?
The seller's real property disclosure form that sellers required to list if they are aware of any major repairs or anything that didn't function with the property. A lot of these times on these flip properties, they'll send it to you and say, oh, we weren't aware of anything. Everything was good. You're telling me you're telling me you didn't know that there were water leaks and that there was this and there was that you repaired.
Yeah. Right.
And you're not disclosing it now.
Yeah, no, that's a crappy deal there. I agree. Really, the idea is there's going to be poopy people in the industry all the time that are not doing it for the right reasons. They're not doing things the right way. I mean, that's in any industry, right? So we can be hopeful that people are being upfront. Like you and I, we're big on integrity and transparency. I know that about you. I know that about me. So I think people out there should just, first of all, make sure that you're interviewing, check people's reputations, make sure that they are professional, transparent, honest, ethical, all those things, before you work with them. But there's a lot of slick folks out there just getting people to sign on the dotted line. So that's a good point right there. Just don't go with the first person you talk to necessarily. Find out reputation and then go with the one that is going to be fair and honest.
Yeah. Another thing that I pose to NAR and our local association sometimes, because everyone's heard about it, our association has talked about it locally and nationally, is you always heard this term, discount broker.
Yep.
Well, what's a discount broker? If everything is negotiable, what's a discount broker? You're implying that there's a standard or a set amount by saying there's a discount broker.
You're right.
There really is no such thing as a discount broker.
Yeah.
Yet we use this terminology in the industry all the time, which
I never even thought about that. You're right. There is no such thing as a discount broker when all commissions are negotiable. So it's not a discount.
Yeah. I mean, if you're $25 less than me, are you a discount broker?
Yeah. That's pretty much what I market it. $25 less than Michael Vestuto.
Yeah.
And
$1 lower than the next guy. It's like the price is right.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, hey, brother, I could talk on and on forever with you about this stuff. It's always actually a pleasure to talk to you. I like how we can have dialogue back and forth, and we're thinking outside of the box, and we're feeding off each other's ideas. And it's really, I enjoy it every time, and I learn lots from you every time that we do this. So
same here.
Cool. I appreciate you coming on the show. It is time to wrap it up.
All righty.
But let's
time to go sell some houses.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do some debt consolidation type stuff and whatever we can do to help our consumers get to where they need to go. I think you and I both going to continue to do that. So Michael's information is all at the bottom of the screen. He is a trustworthy, professional, experienced agent in Las Vegas, and he's going to fight for the best situation for you at all times. So please give him a call if you're looking to buy or sell a house in Las Vegas. And we'll see you all on the next show on Thursday, the National Real Estate News, where we'll be talking about the local market in some part of the country. And thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for coming, Michael.
Thank you. Your check's in the mail for that plug.
Thanks, buddy. I was hoping so. $25. That's what I want.
All right, brother.
All right. Have a good day, buddy.
All right. You too.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.